So just as the astrological birth chart can be subdivided into decans in the Western Hellenistic system, or nakshatras and their padas in the Vedic system, the human design chart is made up of hexagrams called gates and their subdivisions called lines. So to really compare the two, it makes sense to pair the interpretations of the hexagrams in human design with the nakshatras in Vedic astrology. So human design uses the tropical zodiac, where 0 degrees of Aries is marked by the equinoxes. So for this comparison, I'll be aligning the hexagram gates with the nakshatras of Vedic astrology. Now, while the nakshatras are inherently sidereal, fixed to the stars, and traditional Vedic astrology uses a sidereal zodiac, my own research has shown that combining traditional Vedic astrology with a tropical zodiac, whilst keeping the nakshatras fixed as they are, yields more accurate and aligned results for interpretation. This approach aligns with the work of top-notch astrologers such as Ernst Wilhelm, Ryan Kurzak, Victor Kara, and Kavi Kanpurshadasa, who've explored the nuances of using a tropical system with the sidereal nakshatras. In Hellenistic astrology, there's a system of subdivisions called the decans, which divides the zodiac into 36 further subdivisions, each covering 10 degrees of a sign. Like Vedic astrology, Hellenistic astrology also places importance on the fixed stars, which are essentially what the nakshatras represent. Given that both Hellenistic and Vedic astrology share this emphasis, it feels logical to compare human design's gates, which use the tropical zodiac, with the fixed stars and nakshatras in astrology. In this analysis, I'll map the human design gates to the tropical zodiac, whilst using the Vedic nakshatras as a reference. So in this section, we're going to be taking a really in-depth look comparing the gates with the nakshatras of Vedic astrology. Now, we're using a tropical Vedic system here. The zodiac is informed by the equinoxes, but the nakshatras, being inherently sidereal, stay in the same position as you'd expect to see them in a sidereal chart, to keep it simple. So the Ashwini nakshatra is going to be starting at 24 degrees and 7 Aries. Okay, this is going to be a big section because we're going to do an honest deep dive into comparing the human design gates with the Vedic nakshatras as per a tropical Vedic system. If you're not into the precise calculations, I'd advise you to take a look at the work of Ernst Wilhelm, Ryan Kurzak, and Victor Kara to find out my justification for mapping the tropical zodiac positions of the gates in human design, which are given by the Rave I Ching, to the degrees of the sidereal Vedic nakshatras when we use a tropical zodiac on top of that. It can get a little bit confusing, not very beginner friendly, but if you're confused about that, take a look at the work of those guys. So we have a basic table here. We've got the gate number, the gate or the hexagram, as it's called in the I Ching, the name, the tropical zodiac position, the associated nakshatra, some notes on the nakshatra, the archetypal associations, then the notes between the gate and the hexagram, and then a rough alignment score where I've tried to compare the similarities in the interpretations and the archetypal energies between the two. So if you want to follow along with my notes, you can download a free PDF and Excel sheet in the description where you can follow along and add your own notes. I was going to try and make this into a cool graphic, but it's just such a huge table. So you can download the Excel sheet and the PDF, add your own notes, and follow along. So let's start with gate 25, Innocence, the spirit of the self. The tropical zodiac position here is at 28 degrees at Pisces through to 3 degrees 52 of Aries. So this, to start out, we're kind of starting at the end, beginning at the beginning. It crosses the end of Pisces, the very end of the tropical zodiac, enters the beginning of Aries. So it kind of has this very last and very first type of thing going on. The nakshatra is Uttara Bhadrapada. So the Uttara Bhadrapada nakshatra is translated, and I'm using Victor Kara's translations here, above the altar. Symbol is twins, detachment, dissociation. The translation from Victor Kara is it needs to sanctify to extract essence. It's ruled by Saturn. It's associated with the serpent god, the power of the unknown, the Kundalini, and the renunciate warrior. In the Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra, which is the number one kind of ancient Vedic text for Jyotish or Vedic astrology. I'm taking some notes from that ancient source as well. It's associated with being of the Rishi Kshatriya, the spiritual warrior class. Some notes on the gate or the hexagram. I have got these from the Revi Ching and some other online sources. So primarily coming from the Revi Ching, maybe some other online sources to back up my ideas. So in the gate 25, we have the perfection of action through uncontrived and spontaneous nature. Some notes on the hexagram. It's the perfection it's called the perfection of action through uncontrived and spontaneous nature. It's a gate located in the G center associated with direction. And from the Revi Ching, it says that this is the gate of the spiritual warrior. So straight off the bat, we have this 6 out of 10 alignment score. So we've got this duality going on between the second last nakshatra, Uttara Bhadrapada, and the starting cycle of the human design gates. So gate 25 is about that fresh start. It's very appropriate for being the first gate in the wheel. It's about the fresh start, whereas Uttara Bhadrapada is a bit more about spiritual finality, the depth of wisdom, the introspection, the spiritual release, this sense of finality, the last step on the evolutionary, roadmap, as it were. So it's not a great lineup there, but however, we both have this literal description of the spiritual warrior, this initiatory, divine initiation to the pattern of the archetypal energy. The warrior of inner transformation versus the outer finality in the beginning. The Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra, which is the authoritative ancient Vedic text on Jyotish, specifically mentions the Rishi Kshatriya class, spiritual warrior, whereas in the Revi Ching, a completely unrelated text, we get a description that this is the gate of the spiritual warrior. Why spiritual warrior? Because it's the very first pattern in this wheel. It's divinely inspired. It's got the initiatory energy. It's very archetypally appropriate to be the first gate, the first thing in our evolutionary developmental wheel, so to speak. So it has a good rough comparison there. The next gate is gate 17, hexagram called opinions or following. This goes from 3 degrees 52 through to 9 degrees 30 of Aries. Again, it still sits within the Uttara Bhadrapada nakshatra, that finality, that serpentine, kundalini, renunciate, spiritual warrior type associate. From the Revi Ching, we get the gate of the student and the teacher, the formula, the right eye. And in the 6th line, there is a description of the bodhisattva, the sense of enlightenment and then service. And it's an Ajna center gate associated with that 3rd eye center. So the alignment is pretty good here. We have this leadership through wisdom rather than force, accumulated wisdom of Uttara Bhadrapada that we get before leading. Remember, that gate is the gate of opinions as well. The characteristic is having strong opinions. There's nothing specifically about opinions in Uttara Bhadrapada, but a good leader collects wisdom as a good follower first. So it's a rough match. Gate 21, the Huntress, also known as biting through, goes from 9 degrees 30 to 15 degrees 7 of Aries. The nakshatra, it crosses over Revati and Ashwini. Revati nakshatra is the nourished. The symbol is fish, love, nourishment. The translation from Victakara, a description from Victakara is it needs calves for cows, coming from the ancient Vedic text. And it's ruled by Pushya, ensuring safe passage and completion. This protector of souls, requiring control over circumstances. Now, if we look at Ashwini nakshatra, which it also crosses over, we have the horseman, the symbol of the horse's head, health, charisma, and a description from the Vedic texts, it needs the town for followers. And from the Revi Ching, the specific description of this 21st gate is the justified and necessary use of power in overcoming deliberate and persistent interference. This is part of the channel of materialism, controlling everything about one's life, enforcing justice and control through willpower. Now, I have to say, this doesn't really match. We have this egoic biting through to control circumstances in the hexagram, versus Revati Nakshatra's kind of soft cosmic guidance of the soul. However, this one does cross into Ashwini, and Ashwini is swiftness, initiatory action, like the horse bolting onto a racetrack. In another Vedic text, the Brihat Jataka and the Brihat Samhita, it says, he who is born in Ashwini will be bold, direct, and a remover of obstacles, bringing rapid transformation, which sounds like biting through to me. You know, it's initiatory, it's fast paced, it's about taking control to initiate actions. Quick fighting for control, capable of strong leadership. This gate is in the ego center in the human design system and is called the gate of the CEO, the person who controls the resources. And a quote from the Rig Veda that the Ashwins, the twins that this nakshatra is represented by, they bring good to the starving and health to the suffering, which links to the channel of materialism because as the CEO, the leader, you bring resources to the tribe. Ashwini can also punish when the law isn't followed. So gate 21 will bring violence to injustice. So there's more of a match between this biting through hexagram gate and the Ashwini nakshatra, which is the horses, the speed, the initiation of action, the transformation of action. So I think that's a pretty good match on the Ashwini side. As we move on to gate 51, it's called in the I Ching, it's called the Arousing, or the gate of shock. Goes from 15 degrees Aries to around 20 degrees of Aries. Again, this is in the Ashwini nakshatra. That symbol of the horse's heads, the health, the charisma. The Ashwini born will be bold, unafraid, and ever ready for action. And from the Revi Ching, we have the ability to respond to disorder and shock through recognition and adaptation. The individual initiative, the competition. So the Trigat, so this is very much about competition and responding to disorder and shock. This gate of shock and the ability to deal with shock and shocks of life. And interesting note that the trigrams of this gate are thunder over thunder, which is a very arousing quality. This is a shocking quality. It's about leaping into the unknown. So I gave this a 7 out of 10 because the initiatory action of Ashwini, like the horses bolting at the start of the race, associated with also with Aries, which is the first sign. It's a fire sign. It's about the self initiation, doing and then thinking. It's a real match there. From the Rig Veda, the Ashwins come like lightning, swift and sudden, restoring life where there was none. So both the gate of shock and Ashwini are bold, shocking, dramatic, and initiate new action. And Ashwini needs the town for followers. It needs to recognize chaos and then say, everyone, follow me out of this initiatory chaos. Both share the image of lightning, interestingly. So remember when I'm comparing these, that these are two completely different systems which basically have no claim to another and have mapped, as a human design has mapped the gates to this specific section of a tropical zodiac and the nakshatras, which I'm using in reference to a tropical zodiac here as well. Let's go to gate 42, the gate of increase or the gate of growth, around 20 degrees of Aries to 26 degrees of Aries, still in the Ashwini nakshatra. And from the Revi Ching, for the gate of increase, we get the expansion of the resources, which maximizes the development of full potential, or maximizing the potential of beginnings through expansion. From the I Ching itself, it furthers one to cross the greater water, which is a bit more of a archaic Chinese translation. So I gave this a 6 out of 10 for the match. There's a sort of a link between granting movement to the immobile and vision to the blind and strength to the weary from the Rig Veda, which is all associated with the Ashwinis, which is increasing the life force and expansion, which maximizes that development of the full potential. It's bringing of resources, which allows for expansion to happen. And Ashwini is, again, the first nakshatra, indicating a new cycle of growth. First, the beginning, then the increase, which is the expansion of the beginning. So it makes sense for this gate of increase and growth to be like the third in this initiatory nakshatra. We have the raw initiation of the beginning and then the increase of the resources to allow that initiatory action to go. So I do think there is a good match between this archetypal gate of increase and growth matching with the Ashwini nakshatra. So let's go to gate 3, ordering or difficulty at the beginning. This goes from 26 degrees of Aries through to 2 degrees of Taurus. We're still in the Ashwini Nakshatra here. And from the Rave I Ching, we have the fundamental challenge of initiation is to transcend confusion and establish order. And the other description is general mutation, bringing order out of chaos. So this sense of ordering, you've got this initiatory chaos, now we have to order it. This is the difficulty that comes out of beginning any new action. So this, I would give this a 6 out of 10 for an alignment. The alignment score would be a 6 out of 10. The energy of Ashwini aligns well with the starting the bold new actions, seeing the chaos and shock and doing the work to produce order out of chaos. The Vedic texts see the Ashwin twins as divine healers and bringers of boons rather than administrative organizations. But there is a sort of a link of organizing things. So I don't think it's incredibly well linked, this sense of ordering, getting things structured, and this sense of difficulty at the beginning of an action as a characteristic versus that more initiatory, bold Ashwini Nakshatra. There's a rough connection. Let's go to gate 27, which is called caring or nourishment, the gate of nourishment, going from 2 degrees to around 7 degrees of Taurus. Now, this crosses both Ashwini and Bharani nakshatras. And Bharani is the regulator. The symbol is that female reproductive system. It's about duty, rules, that the pain of looking after something. And a description from the Vedic texts is it needs repression to repel. And it's interesting that this nakshatra is associated with that, the female reproduction system, especially in cows, with it being in the Taurus zodiac sign, the bull. I get this image of the bull, which is holding onto its calf, before being born. It's protective. It's taking the heavy weight. It's taking the pain to ensure that there is a fruitful generation, a fruitful productive action that comes after it. So one description from this gate of nourishment, which really works well with this Bharani nakshatra, is the enhancement of the quality and the substance of all activities through caring. And from the Rave I Ching, we get without nourishment and caring, nothing can survive, which is fascinating because it matches really well with the Bharani nakshatra, which is about that symbol of the bull holding its young, that symbol of the female reproductive system, the pain and the holding on to a new life form and the pain of giving birth to the new life form, that sense of needing to carry a very heavy weight for good positive things to come through afterwards. So there's not much link to the Ashwini nakshatra, but it does cross into Bharani. And this is Taurus ruled, and it's ruled by Venus. Remember, Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is feminine, luxurious, good things in life. The way that, I've said, the way that a cow cares for its calf, the pressure of holding the calf in the womb. The Brihat Samhita text says one born in Bharani will be fond of sexual pleasures. This gate mirrors the pure sexuality of the 59th gate. So it's this interesting that there's a sexual theme when the symbol of the nakshatra is the female reproductive system. But this is more a direct match for going through hardships and pain. And that, as we say in the Rave I Ching, the enhancement of the quality of substance of something through the act of caring. It's caring, characteristic of being caring and nourishing. And this matches directly with the Bharani nakshatra, just about caring, the hard work that goes into caring for something. In the Taurus nakshatra, that image of the bull looking after its young, so that when the springtime comes, we get the Venus, the luxurious, lighter, good things in life. I think there's a real direct match there, which is quite fascinating. Let's move on to gate 24, returning, or the gate of rationalizing. This is going from about 7 degrees to 13 degrees of Taurus, again with the Bharani nakshatra. And the notes I have for this hexagram is the natural and spontaneous process of transformation and renewal. And from the Rave I Ching itself, individual conceptualizing, pondering. It's part of the channel of awareness and a design of a thinker. So it's a very mental gate. It's about individual conceptualization, mental pondering. And this is a characteristic of someone who would be good at thinking things through, good at rationalizing, good at mental activity. And I have to say there is a weaker link here between the ruler of the Nakshatra, which is Yama, which is the god of death, returning souls to old experiences, reviewing them, extracting wisdom. It's a bit like the returning feature of Gate 24, but it's a real stretch, the gate of returning, whereas Yama, the god who rules this nakshatra, is about returning the souls to previous experiences. But I think that is a stretch. Really, Bharani is about the pain that comes from caring deeply and nurturing and being nourishing to something. But this is a very mental, analytical gate, so I don't think there's much of a link here. Let's move on to Gate 2, the Receptive, or the Gate of Higher Knowing, going from 13 degrees to 18 degrees around Taurus, again within the Bharani nakshatra. Some notes on this gate: receptivity as the primal base through which any response is determined, the root of action, the most receptive hexagram with 6 yin lines. Now, this is really the seat of the driver. So receptivity as the primal base through which any response is determined, the root of action. So it's really about being highly receptive to things, being receptive to higher intuitive understanding, being open to intuitive insights, higher knowing, intuitions, being highly receptive like that. So I've given it a 5 out of 10. There's a sort of a link with this hexagram being the most feminine and the most receptive, with Bharani being the womb. That the literal symbol is a womb. It's ruled by Venus, which is the feminine god. But Bharani seems much more physical, whilst Gate 2 seems quite mental, being in the Ajna center. So I can't quite give it a direct match. Let's move on to Gate 23, splitting apart, the Gate of Assimilation, going from around 18 degrees to 24 degrees of Taurus. It crosses over the Bharani and the Krittika nakshatras. The Krittika nakshatra, it's called the activator. There's a symbol of the razor, the knife. It's about initiation energy. It needs fuel for initiation. And Krittika is a Sanskrit word for where we get the word critical. So think critical hits, critical chopping, knives, getting something highly critically accuracy. And this, for me, is really well matched, because from the description of the hexagram gates for splitting apart, we get amorality, the awareness and understanding which leads to the acceptance of diversity. It's a bit more archaic and vague, but from the Revi chain, we get, if the individual can express their insight clearly to the collective, they will eventually earn the collective's respect. The gate of I know. There's a description of this gate being the gate of I know this, the characteristic of someone who says, I know, I know. It's a throat gate, which is where that sense of saying I know comes from. So it's part of the knowing circuit in human design. So it's very much about knowing. And it's about giving voice to your inner insights, gaining those insights and then expressing them. So again, I've given this a 9 out of 10 because there's no match with the Bharani nakshatra, but it does cross into Krittika, where we get the word critical from. And this is about the critical blow, slicing and splitting apart. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Krittika will be sharp in speech, fierce, engaged in cutting. So there's a clear link to being sharp in speech, being a throat gate, breaking down existing forms to enable transformation. It's about a sharp expression of insights. The gate is called splitting apart, and we have it in the nakshatra associated with a knife, with splitting things up. It's quite an incredible match, considering that these two systems have not really had any communication with each other. And it's a mental gate as well, a gate of assimilation. So it's about expressing individual insights, individual thoughts and insights to the collective. And Krittika is said to be, and from the Vedic texts, we get that one born in this Krittika nakshatra will be sharp in speech, fierce, engaged in cutting. So there is this universal skill, it seems, associated with this part of the tropical zodiac to do with very accurate speech, sharp mental insights provided to the other. So I had to give that a 9 out of 10. It matches very well. Gate 8, holding together, the gate of contribution. This goes from 24 degrees Taurus to around 7 arc minutes of Gemini. We're still in the Krittika Nakshatra, that symbol of the razor. And some notes from the Gate of Contribution. The basic worth realized in contributing individual efforts to group goals. I have this note from the Revi Ching. It's the mirror of the 23rd Gate of Assimilation. Individual contribution to the whole. It's a throat gate. It's a knowing circuit. So in my opinion, it doesn't really hold together with the Krittika Nakshatra. Again, Krittika Nakshatra is about splitting things, or the razor being very sharp in speech. It's associated with the razor, with the knife. And this is a gate of contribution, the gate of holding things together, contributing things, contributing to group goals, group activities, individual contribution to the whole. So it's a throat gate in the knowing circuit. So it's kind of associated with contributing those insights. It's not as strongly associated with being very sharp in speech and sharp in expressing those insights. There's a loose connection there. Gate 20, Contemplation, the gate of the now, going from around the beginning of Gemini to 5 degrees Gemini. We're in the Krittika Nakshatra, but it also crosses over into the Rohini Nakshatra. So to get you familiar with the Rohini Nakshatra, it's translated. One translation is the arouser. The symbol is the chariot. It's about passion, creativity, and it needs one description from the ancient texts is it needs water for herbs. So Rohini being in Gemini, it's going to be passionate, swift, creative. Gemini associated with fast thought, communication, creative thinking. So the notes for this gate of contemplation, the gate of the now, I have recognition and awareness in the now, which transforms understanding into right action, or directly from the Revi Ching, the final stage. The Revi Ching says it's the final stage in expressing the intuition. It's part of three different channels. A design of a commitment to higher principles. It's part of a design of awareness, and it's part of a design where thoughts must be deeds. My experience has not much alignment with the Krittika Nakshatra here, apart from maybe a sharp awareness of the immediate present and expression in the now. Remember, this is the gate of the now, the immediate moment, contemplation and awareness of the immediate moment in the present. It kind of overlaps with Rohini a little bit. So Gemini is obviously linked with swift communication and expression, and maybe the expression of insight in the present moment. And if there's one zodiac sign I'd associate with the word right now, it would be Gemini. However, it's a weak and loose interpretation. So I'm not giving it much credence there. Gate 16, Enthusiasm, the gate of skills. This goes from around 5 degrees to 11 degrees of Gemini. It's in the Rohini Nakshatra. Rohini, the arouser, the symbol of the chariot, passion and creativity. It needs water. So again, the note of this gate, the gate of skills, the gate of enthusiasm, is the great art of enriching life by the harmonic channeling of energy. And from the Revi Ching directly, it's the ancient Chinese hexagram of music, dance, and the arts. The skills for living, skillful action, and the joy of mastery. So it's clear that this gate 16, the gate of skills and enthusiasm, associated with the arts, like being a good poet, a good musician, a good dancer, there's a real strong alignment with Rohini's passion and creativity. It's an arouser. Rohini is about arousing things, whereas gate 16 also has that sense of enthusiasm and being aroused from your passion. And from the Brihat Samhita, this ancient Vedic text, says one born in Rohini will be nurturing creative endeavors. So clearly it's to do with the arts and skills in the arts. So in the Mahabharata, Krishna is born under Rohini and embodies Leela, the divine play, using skill and charm. And the moon rules the Rohini Nakshatra, which is a link to the arts. And moon is associated with the arts in some astrological schools. So it's about patient labor and clearly a clear link to artistic skills. The gate of enthusiasm and skills, with the Revi Ching pointing to music, dance, and the arts, and it lines directly with the Rohini Nakshatra being this arousing, this one born in Rohini will be nurturing creative endeavors, and Krishna embodying the divine play using skill and charm. It's a really strong 7 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10 alignment. Again, there may be some instances where the alignments don't work here, but where they do, it's very compelling, because these are systems thousands of years apart. Obviously, for Vedic astrology, it goes back thousands of years, and human design comes from one guy, and the gates from the I Ching are even a different order from the original ordering. So the fact that they've chosen these specific sections of a tropical zodiac to place these archetypal energies in, and the fact that there's some matches going on, is quite suspect in my view. Gate 35, the gate of progress or change, going from 11 degrees to around 17 degrees of Gemini. It crosses Rohini and Mrigashira Nakshatra. So Mrigashira is the doe, which is the symbol is the deer's head. So I think of a deer, it's dexterous, it's got dexterity, delicacy, some grace. One description from a Vedic text is it needs to diffuse, to unite. And from the Brihat Samhita, again, one born in Mrigashira will be restless, inquisitive, and skilled in hunting or exploration. So there's a swiftness to this nakshatra. Makes sense with it being in the Gemini sign. Gemini associated with swiftness, fast-moving things, moving from A to B. It's an air sign, things moving fast and swiftly in the air without much staying power. So, and just like a doe, which is dexterous, think of how a doe or a deer runs away very dexterously, very delicately, and very swiftly when it's chased, very accurately. And so for the gate of change, I have these notes on, by design, progress cannot exist in a vacuum and is dependent on interaction. From the Rave I Ching, it says, satiating the appetite for change, and it's part of the channel of transitoriness. So the channel is when two different gates are activated, but this is one gate out of two for a channel of transitoriness. So this essence of transitoriness and satiating an appetite for swift change in the sign of Gemini associated with swift actions, in the nakshatra associated with the dexterous delicacy and running around of the deer, the restlessness, with the ancient Vedic text saying that someone's going to be restless, inquisitive, and skilled in hunting or exploration, is a very, very strong alignment. It's about the gate of change, the gate of swiftness, progress. So clearly, this appetite for change in the Rave I Ching, in the sign of Gemini, with swiftness, and in the Mrigashira Nakshatra, to do with the delicacy and dexterity of the deer. It's a very interesting link of archetypal energies. So I'm giving this 8 out of 10. Gate 45, gathering together, the gatherer. This goes from around 17 degrees to 22 degrees of Gemini. We're still in the Mrigashira Nakshatra. The doe's head, this delicacy and swiftness of the doe. The notes I have for this gate of the gatherer, the natural and beneficial attraction of like forces. And from the Rave I Ching directly, part of the design of a materialist. It's the gate of the king or queen. The 45 is the Greta, is the gator of the Pasha. It says, I have this land, but I'll allow you to hunt on it to make sure I get the best piece of meat. So this gate of the gatherer, or gathering together, I give it a 6 out of 10 alignment, because with Mrigashira, it's a bit more of an innocent, wandering, swift energy, symbolized by the deer or the deer's head. The wandering deer, the dexterous deer that runs away. The deer is still a good hunter, though. We get that description from the Brihat Samhita that one born in Mrigashira will be skilled in hunting or exploration, just like Arjuna, the archer. And this gate is opposite in the human design chart to the gate of biting through. And it makes up this money line, which is a design of a materialist. And so there is association with that skill of hunting and gathering, which still resonates very well. And obviously dexterity and skill is a skill of a hunter. The ruling planet of Mrigashira is Mars, which is, the warrior, the hunter. And from another Vedic text called the Shatapatha Brahmana, When Mrigashira reigns, let the seeker gather herbs and incantations, for this star opens paths to hidden wisdom and remedies. So it's a very interesting link to gathering stuff. The hunter-gatherer, gathering your resources together. The attraction of like forces. The part of the design of the materialist, getting the good stuff, hunting for the good stuff, gathering the good stuff together. Hunting and gathering, going out and about. So we have not only this gate of gathering together in a sign of Gemini associated with fast movement, going out and about, going from A to B, in a restless nakshatra, which is associated with skill in hunting. And it's opposite the gate of the hunter in the human design system. And, it's obviously, you've got the gate of the hunter and then the gate of the gatherer, making this archetype of hunting gathering. So there's a really strong match here, I think. Incredible that the Vedic nakshatra associates it with skill in hunting, and the gate is called gathering together and is opposite the gate of the hunter in the I Ching. It's very interesting. Obviously, like Arjuna, the archer, and from that Vedic text, the Shatapatha Brahmana says that when Mrigashira reigns, let the seeker gather herbs and incantations. Another sense of gathering things together. So this is a really strong match in my view. Very interesting. Gate 12, Standstill, the gate of caution. This is going from about 22 to 28 Gemini. Again, we're still in the Mrigashira nakshatra. From my notes for this gate of caution, the gate of standstill, the quality of restraint and importance of meditation and inaction in confronting temptation. So from the Revi Ching, it's specifically about not doing. Social caution, wariness about the collective, aloneness, essentially this stopping and thinking before you act. This gate of standstill, being cautious, stopping. So I have to say this is a 4 out of 10 match. This does not really match. There's a theme of withdrawing, being cautious, coming to a standstill. It doesn't really align with the wandering and hunting ideals of Mrigashira or Gemini, to be honest. However, a good hunter, like the deer, knows when to be still and have some caution, but that's a far stretch. So we have this fundamental mismatch here, this swift hunting, dexterous nakshatra inside a gate of standing still. So not really a match. Gate 15, extremes, the gate of modesty. This is from about 28 degrees Gemini to 3 degrees of Cancer. This crosses the Mrigashira and Ardra nakshatras. So to get you familiar with the Ardra nakshatra, Ardra is the storm. The symbol is a teardrop. It's destruction of injustice. One description is it needs predators to destroy. One born in Ardra nakshatra will be intense, transformative, and skilled in destruction or renewal. They will weather storms to reveal clarity. Destructive rain, cleaning the earth. So it's very much a stormy, emotional, destructive nakshatra. Intense, emotionally intense, destructive, transformative, like a storm that clears away the earth. So for the gate of modesty, the gate of extremes, the notes I have for this human design gate, the quality of behavior which expresses the proper balance between extremes. From the Revi Ching directly, we get through this gate, the possible extremes are lived out. So this is a gate of extremes. The gate is called extremes. It's a gate of modesty. The gate is literally called the gate of extremes. So it's an 8 out of 10 match. There's not really an overlap with Mrigashira nakshatra, but Ardra is literally the storm. And gate 15 is the gate of extremes. Ardra is destruction and renewal and balance of extremes, which is what gate 15 is all about. Ardra, the nakshatra, is ruled by Rahu, the North Node, which is about intensity, transformation, and obsession. So it's inherently to do with extremes. So there's a clear sense of extremes here. This archetypal energy of the extreme. You get the gate of extreme, landing basically just into the Ardra Nakshatra, this destructive storm, this extreme storm archetype. So very strong match there. Gate 52, Inaction, keeping still, the mountain. This goes from around 3 degrees to 9 degrees of Cancer. We're still in Ardra Nakshatra, the emotional, destructive storm Nakshatra. So the notes on the gate of inaction: temporary and self-imposed inaction for the benefit of assessment. Directly from the Revi Ching, we get focusing and channeling energy, which is part of the channel of concentration. So this gate makes up 1 out of 2 gates for this channel of concentration. So I have to say this is a 4 out of 10. Ardra isn't a very inactive nakshatra. Ardra is a huge destructive storm, and this is a gate of inaction, the mountain. So even the water element and the earth element doesn't really add up there. There is a sense of caution in the storm to wait for clarity, which both the hexagram and the nakshatra share. That sort of calm before the storm, but that's a real stretch. So I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. It doesn't really add up. Let's go to gate 39, the provocateur, the gate of obstruction. This goes from around 9 degrees to 15 degrees of Cancer. It crosses both Ardra Nakshatra and Punarvasu Nakshatra. So Punarvasu Nakshatra is the cycle. The symbol is a bow and quiver, bow and arrow. It's about renewing, improving, and it needs the old for the new. So it's this cyclic idea. You fire off your bow, you have to go cycle it. You have to go through a cycle of getting everything. So it's a very cyclic nakshatra. It's literally called the cycle. So the notes that I have for this human design gate, the gate of obstruction: the value of obstruction in provoking analysis, assessment, and reevaluation. From the Revi Ching, the provocateur is seeking out the spirit. The channel is a design of moodiness, the emotional wave. So the channel of this gate is a design of moodiness. So it's provocative, maybe a bit obstructive, a bit emotionally provocative in this gate. That's the characteristic. That's the characteristic associated with this gate, kind of emotional provocativeness or provoking analysis, provoking assessment can be a part of moodiness. So I have to say there's a connection between the obstruction that provokes assessment and the reevaluation of the cyclic replenishment of Punarvasu, of this renewing and improving. So Punarvasu's renewal, the restoration and the repetition sort of fits with the assessment and reevaluation of the gate of obstruction, but that's a real stretch. It fits with Cancer, definitely fits with Cancer being this comfy, homey sign of replenishment, even an emotional sign in Cancer. So the gate and the nakshatra work well with the sign of Cancer, but there's not really so much of a direct link between Punarvasu, this cyclic idea, and this provocateur idea of the 39th gate. Gate 53, beginnings, the gate of development. This runs from about 15 degrees to 20 degrees of Cancer. It's in the Punarvasu Nakshatra, which is the cycle, renewing and improving. One born in Punarvasu will be virtuous, adaptable, and skilled in trade and navigation. They will thrive by embracing cycles of loss and renewal. And it's ruled by Jupiter. So Punarvasu is very much to do with cycles of life. And this is the gate of beginnings, or the gate of development. So the notes I have for this gate from the I Ching: development as a structured progression that is both steadfast and enduring. And from the Revi Ching, we get the fuel of the maturation process, energy to start a new cycle, regardless of the changes that it brings. The pressure to being and to complete a cycle. Now, I think this is pretty solid, because I give this a 6 to 7. We have the tide themes of navigating new cycles of action and the pressure to start and complete a cycle. There's this theme of cyclic replenishment in Punarvasu Nakshatra and in this gate of beginnings, the gate of development. It's about slow and steady progress, renewal and patience. The hexagram is actually a mountain tree, which deepens its root with each season. So there is a cyclical, seasonal archetype to both the nakshatra here and the gate. That fuel of the maturation process, energy to start a new cycle, regardless of the changes that it brings, the pressure to complete a cycle. And Punarvasu, one translation being the cycle. So there's a real strong match here, which is quite incredible, really quite incredible. Gate 62, the gate of detail, preponderance of the small. This goes from the 20th degree of Cancer to 26th degrees of Cancer. We are still in the Punarvasu nakshatra. This cyclical nakshatra, one born in Punarvasu, will be virtuous, adaptable, skilled in trade, navigation. They thrive by embracing cycles of loss and renewal. So the notes for the gate of detail, the gate of preponderance of the small from the human design system: caution, patience, and detail produce excellence out of limitation. And from the Revati Ching, it's the gate of I think, the detail, the preponderance of the small. The concept of how things should be organized must face the crucible of testing, repetition, and experiment. So there's a brief link here. The Punarvasu's symbol of the bow and quiver does kind of show careful resource management, but the gate is much more about vocalizing mental concepts and the small details in those concepts. However, there is this sense of testing, repetition, and experimentation with those small details, which sort of matches with this cyclical analysis of Punarvasu, but not quite. It's a kind of a link there, not massive. And the characteristic in human design is more about if someone has the gate of detail, they can get down, they can mentally express those tiny little details, chop things up into tiny bits, analyze them well. But there is a sense of repetition and experimentation and a cyclical review of that mental concept that they can express, which sort of matches with Punarvasu's cyclical energy. So I'm not going to overdo that one. There's a rough link, not super well linked. So 4 or 5 out of 10. Gate 56, stimulation, the gate of the wanderer. Around 26 degrees of Cancer to 2 degrees of Leo. We are now in the Pushya nakshatra in the Vedic system. And Pushya is the blossom. The symbol is the lotus, success, fruition. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Pushya nakshatra will be virtuous, nurturing, and engaged in agriculture or caregiving. They prosper by sustaining others like rain nourishes crops. So for the gate of stimulation, the wanderer, the notes I have from the I Ching: stability through movement, the perpetuation of continuity through the linking of short-term activity. And from the Revati Ching exactly, it's part of the channel of curiosity, the design of a seeker, a searcher. The idea is never a solution, but it's always a journey. Once an idea is expressed verbally, that's the end of the process. So this gate of stimulation, the gate of the wanderer, it's a throat gate. It's more associated with the characteristic of being able to talk, being able to tell stories, being able to link ideas, to talk about different ideas, and just going on that mental journey. And, being good at storytelling, being good at linking different topics together and expressing that through the throat. So does it go with Pushya's blossoming lotus symbol? Being virtuous, nurturing, engaged in agriculture and caregiving. There's a brief link between Pushya's advice that it needs, and the wandering and the stimulation of gate 56. That's kind of a real stretch, though. Pushya is more about stability, nourishment, and nurturing. And it fits with being in the tropical sign of Cancer, definitely, because that's a sign ruled by the moon, nurturing. Cancer is the homeland, the family, the ones you care about, the ones you want to protect. And so Pushya, this successful blossoming and caregiving and nourishing, goes very well with this sign of Cancer. But the gate of stimulation in the human design system is more about talking about concepts and finding links between ideas and engaging that through the throat. So it's not really a direct link. Gate 31, leading, the gate of influence. This goes from 2 degrees to 7 degrees of Leo. It's part of the Pushya and also crosses into the Assimilation nakshatra. So to introduce Assimilation nakshatra, It's called the Embrace. The symbol is the coiled snake. It's about seduction, intrigue. It needs to seduce to embrace. And from the Brihat Samhita, one born in Ashlesha will be cruel, a poisoner, sinful, fierce, and will deal in poisonous articles. So there's something shady and mysterious and seductive about this nakshatra. Again, I think it's pretty good that the gate of leading and influence is in the tropical sign of Leo, the leader, the king. So looking at gate 31, leading, from the I Ching, I have the law of friction, whether active or passive, that engenders transference and thus influence. From the Ravi Ching, this is the gate that says I lead, I am the leader. Manifesting influence, the verbal claim of I lead. It's part of the channel of the Alpha, a design of leadership. So clearly associated with leadership, influencing qualities, being a team leader. It doesn't really align with Pushya Nakshatra, which it crosses, but Ashlesha, the Nakshatra that we're talking about, does land in Leo, which is the classic astrological sign of leadership. The skills of healing and deception don't really align with the leadership theme of the human design gate. Again, it's about this coiled snake, the seduction, the being cruel, poisonous, sinful, fierce, dealing in poisonous articles. Doesn't really go with leadership, so rough link. But I do like how it lands in Leo, the sign of the leader. Gate 33, privacy, the gate of retreat, going from about 7 degrees to 13 degrees of Leo. We're firmly in the Ashlesha Nakshatra here. The Ashlesha Nakshatra being the coiled snake, seduction, intrigue, seduce, embrace. So my notes for gate 33, privacy, retreat, active withdrawal, and the transformation of a weak position into a strength. From the Ravi Ching, the need for privacy. Before a new cycle can begin, reflection on the old cycle. So I'd say there's a poor archetypal alignment here between the privacy and retreat focused hexagram and the Ashlesha Nakshatra, which is a bit retreating-ish, because it's coiled snake, it's seducing, it's behind the scenes, it's a bit sinful, poisonous. There's perhaps the link of maintaining secrecy, but apart from that, not really a good link. The characteristic of the human design gate is that need for privacy, the need for introversion before, and that sense of being a reflective person before you initiate something new. Gate 7, the role of the self, the gate of the army. This goes from around 13 degrees to 18 degrees of Leo. It's in the Ashlesha Nakshatra. The notes I have for this gate is the point of convergence, by design, the need for leadership to guide and order society. From the Ravi Ching, logical direction, part of the channel of the Alpha, a design of leadership. This is the role of the self, the gate of the army. It's very much leadership based. It's part of the channel of the Alpha, the design of leadership. Again, no real convergence between this coiled snake, the seductive, poisonous, slightly dark nakshatra, and this hexagram. Not a real match. Gate 4, formalization, youthful folly. Goes from 18 degrees to 24 degrees of Leo. It crosses the Ashlesha and Magha nakshatra. So Magha is the authority, it's the throne, it's the wealth, the king, the royal leader, royalty. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Magha will be noble, authoritative, and devoted to ancestral rights. They inherit the legacy of forebearers, wielding power with dignity. So it's very much about royal lineage, authority, regalness, being the king. For the notes that I have for the gate of formalization, youthful folly, is the energy to beguile and succeed despite ignorance, freedom from retribution. From the Ravi Ching directly, the most grounded path is based on logic, part of the channel of logic, a design of mental ease mixed with doubt. Again, not a great connection here. There does seem to be a disconnect between the mental, logical aspect of the gate of formalization in the mind and the royal authority imagery of Magha Nakshatra. However, a good leader should be logical, and authority does require humility to some extent, but there's not really a good link here with youthful folly versus the regal royalness of Magha Nakshatra. Gate 29, saying yes, the gate of the abysmal. This goes from around 24 degrees of Leo to around 7 arc minutes of Virgo. We are in Magha Nakshatra. Magha again being that royal throne, the king, noble, authoritative, ancestral rights. The notes I have for this gate: the deep within the deep. Persistence despite difficulties has its inevitable rewards. And from the Ravi chain directly, tantric energy to empower the determination of the self. The sacral saying yes. Part of the channel of discovery, a design of succeeding where others fail. So I think there's a good link here. This channel of saying yes, this being able to succeed where others fail, is a positive nakshatra. It's leonine. It's it's fiery. It's action oriented. There's a link between the royal authority, loading up on piles of commitments and responsibilities. In order for the king to be the king, he has to say yes to a lot of things and have a lot of real world responsibilities. That's what makes the royal ruler a royal ruler, wielding power with dignity. So this energy to empower the determination, this part of saying yes. We've got to say yes to something. We've got to discover it. We've got to deal with it. Let's succeed where others fail. This positive, action-oriented mindset. So there's a good, decent link here. Not very strong, but a decent, positive, action-oriented link. Gate 59, the gate of sexuality, or the gate of dispersion. This is around 0 to 5 degrees of Virgo. We're still in Magha Nakshatra. The notes I have for this gate is the ability to break down barriers to achieve union. From the Ravi Ching, breaking down barriers, dynamic power of the sex drive, intimacy, deep connection, fertility, and projects and careers, not just lovers. So this gate of sexuality, of being productive and creative. And I think this matches well with Virgo, because that sign of Virgo is the woman who has the crops and the medicine, this analytical way of gaining the resources to produce something beneficial, creative, and healthy from the land. That's the sign of Virgo. So this idea of being sexually productive and also creative, producing things, and having that sex drive to create things as well. So I think there's definitely a link with the royal authority, this Leo energy, this prideful lion, the sexual energy, the charisma and enthusiasm of that regal lion-like leader. It's definitely a potent leader, the alpha male, the regal figure. And I think Donald Trump, he has a Leo rising, Leo ascendant, and he has the entire channel of mating. So he doesn't just have this gate of sexuality. He has the gate 6, which means he has the whole channel of mating. So there's probably children that we don't know about there, I'd imagine, and some sexual, probably misconduct, say he has been up to. I mean, this goes hand in hand with that alpha male, leonine, leading energy. So there's a clear link between this gate of sexuality and the enthusiasm and that not just pure sexuality, but sexual energy with the, with that royal king-like figure. And we're in Magha Nakshatra. It does in the tropical system just go into Virgo as well. Virgo obviously associated with sexualities to some extent. So there's links, there's rough links. And again, considering this is essentially an abstract map of the stars and the position of planets, there really shouldn't be any archetypal interpretive link, and yet there is, based on physics that kind of transrational physics. Anyway, gate 40, aloneness, the gate of deliverance, goes from about 5 degrees to 11 degrees of Virgo. We're in the Purva Falguni nakshatra. So to introduce Purva Falguni, it's the husband. The symbol is the front legs of a bed. It's about creativity, assertiveness, and it needs a woman to be a man. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Purva Falguni will be joyous, devoted to pleasures, skilled in arts, and fond of social gatherings. They will be blessed with conjugal happiness and prosperity. For the gate of aloneness, the gate of deliverance, the notes I have are the point of transition between struggle and liberation. From the Ravi Ching, I get one of 3 gates of the social circuit, one of 3 gates of social caution. There's the heart center. It's a gate of the heart center, and it's part of the ego circuit. So I'd give this a 4 out of 10. Purva Falguni symbol is the swinging hammock, the bed, the legs of a bed, relaxation, pleasure, romance, social activities. There is the essence of if it's not aloneness, there's definitely a sense of privacy. Ruled by Venus doesn't quite match with the social gathering aspect to this, though. So it's a gate of aloneness and deliverance in a nakshatra of enjoying social activities and the good things in life. So not quite a match. Gate 64, the gate of confusion before completion, around 11 degrees to 17 degrees of Virgo. We're in Purva Falguni Nakshatra. So the notes that I have for gate 64, which is, again, the final of the 64 gates, but it's positioned in this order in the tropical zodiac. Transition, like birth, requires a determined strength for the passage through. So from the Ravi Ching, it's part of the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity and clarity. The beginning of the abstract mental process. It's about mental activity, filtering information before the pressure can be relieved. So we have this gate of confusion in its nakshatra to do with social pleasures, social gatherings, and happiness. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so there is a mental link, Mercury being the mind. Virgo is a kind of a mentally ruled sign, detail-oriented, and it's a gate of mental activity. So it works with being in Virgo, but maybe not specifically the Purva Falguni Nakshatra. So 4 out of 10, the abstract mental pressure theme of Gate 64 doesn't really align with Purva Falguni's love of social gatherings, relaxations. Virgo itself, where it sits, is very logical, detail-oriented sign, ruled by the thinking planet of Mercury. Gate 47, realization, the gate of oppression, going from 17 to 22 degrees of Virgo. This is in the Uttara Falguni Nakshatra. So to introduce Uttara Falguni, it's the wife. The symbol is the back legs of the bed. It's kind of the opposite, complementary of Purva Falguni. It's about beauty and fulfillment. It needs resources to fulfill desires. One born in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra will be charitable, righteous, a ruler or leader of men, and will enjoy the pleasures of life. The notes that I have for Gate 47, the gate of oppression, is a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength, or both. From the Ravi Ching, mental stress and anxiety. You can only wait for the moment of realization. So this is a gate of mental oppression. It's not a very good gate. Again, it's in Virgo, a mentally ruled sign, ruled by Mercury. This is a mental oppression. It's in the head center, I believe, if not in the crown center. No, it is the head center. So I've said there's no real alignment between the restrictive and adverse state of mental oppression and Uttara Falguni's symbols of beauty, charity, generosity. They're two one's very restrictive and oppressive, the other's very generous and beauty-oriented. So no real match. However, it does do well being in tropical Virgo. Gate 6, the gate of friction, or the gate of conflict, around 22 degrees to 28 degrees of Virgo, sitting in the Uttara Falguni Nakshatra. The notes I have for the gate of friction is the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction. From the Ravi Ching, there's feeling, emoting, and sensitivity, this gate of friction and conflict. So again, this human design gate of friction, this gate of conflict, does not really pair well at all with the charitable, righteous enjoyer of the pleasures of life of Uttara Falguni, so it doesn't really work there. I'm struggling to see how it fits into Virgo too, to be honest, so let's move on. Gate 46, the determination of the self, the gate of pushing upwards, goes from around 28 degrees of Virgo to 3 degrees of Libra. We are now in Hasta Nakshatra. So to introduce Hasta Nakshatra, the Hasta is the dexterous hand. The symbol is the open hand. It's about awareness and detail, craftsmanship to some extent. It needs inspiration to acquire. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Hasta will be skilled in crafts, trade, or healing. They excel in manual dexterity and service, like a potter shaping clay. So Hasta is the hand. Could be a healing hand or a crafting hand. So my notes for gate 46, the determination of the self: good fortune that may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. In the Revi Ching, a gate of serendipity, of recognizing that beginning with one's own body, part of the channel of discovery. So the notes I have for gate 46, the determination of the self: good fortune that may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. From the Revi Ching, it's part of the channel of discovery, a design of succeeding where others fail. So I've given it a 6 out of 10. There's a match between steady effort towards long-term goals, the gate of pushing upwards, steady, consistent efforts, and mastery of practical skills to manifest those goals. And Hasta, the open hand, is that craftsman, is that master, that potter, that shapes the pottery, manual dexterity, skilled in crafts and trade, and this gate of pushing upwards and continuing that sense of mastery. There is a link here. So the hexagram as well for gate 46 is a tree, which is something that slowly grows over time, kind of represents mastery. So that mastery that grows over time, just like a skilled craftsman or a tradesman, the symbol of the hand, and that gate of pushing upwards, continuing onwards. So it's not like it's directly related to the hand symbol, but it's a good enough match that I gave it a 6 out of 10. Gate 18, correction, the gate of working on what has been spoiled. This goes from around 3 degrees to 9 degrees of Libra. We're still in the Hasta Nakshatra, the healing and working hand. One born in Hasta will be skilled in crafts, trade, or healing. The notes I have for gate 18, the gate of correction: the vigilance and determination to uphold and defend basic and fundamental human rights, which is a little bit more archaic version. But from the Rave I Ching, we have taste, the focus of judgment on dissatisfaction, correction. So this gate of correction, the characteristic of being able to spot what is incorrect, is like editing things, being good at spotting, where is something wrong in the details? Is there a spelling mistake in this paragraph? What's wrong with this recipe or this food that I produced? It's a judgmental, analytical skill to work on what's been spoiled, to work on something, to improve something, to have that analytical eye. Vigilance and determination to uphold and defend basic fundamental human rights, or the focus of judgment on dissatisfaction, where I'm dissatisfied with something, I'm going to correct it and correct it and correct it. Constant improvement. So I think there's a 6 out of 10 link. There's a link between correcting and refining and becoming more and more skilled and mastering something to make it shine. And that hand is the open hand. The Hasta is also ruled by Savitir, the sun god, making something shine. I suppose that's a stretch. But there is definitely a link between the mastery of the hand, the healing hand or the craftsmanship hand, and refining, correcting, becoming more analytical, mastering something. There's a link to mastery. It's not a direct link, but I think gate 18 correction within the Hasta Nakshatra works well. And Libra is associated with marketplaces, with balance, probably with craftsmanship and what do you call them? Artisans, that sort of thing. It's ruled by Venus, which is the good things in life, which come from balance, skill, mastery, taste, aesthetic. It's about taste. Correction is also about the sense of taste. This looks off, this is off. I've noticed that this could be improved. So there's a link. It does well being in Libra, and it does well with the link to the Hasta Nakshatra. So good enough, 6 to 7 out of 10 link for this one. Okay, 48, depth, the well, from around 9 degrees of Libra to 15 degrees of Libra. This is in Hasta and crosses into Chitra Nakshatra. So Hasta, the dexterous open hand, the healing hand, the craftsmanship hand, and Chitra Nakshatra, which is called the brilliant. The symbol is the pearl. It's about truth and design. It needs genuine substance for form. So something that's shining and brilliant. So the depth, for the notes for the gate of depth, the necessary and qualitative foundation that is a prerequisite to establish the common good. I've never really understood that description. It's a really abstract one. The necessary and qualitative foundation that is a prerequisite to establish the common good. But from the Ravi Ching document, I get the awareness possibility is to store vital information as a pattern. Its depth, its quality is dependent on what has resulted from the judgmental process, the well of information. So the characteristic associated with this is the well, depth of knowledge, real depth of knowledge, a real well. You're drawing the well of knowledge from someone. It's a very deep well and source of solutions and deep universal patterns of this is how things happen and this is how you should do things. So it's a well of knowledge. So it crosses both Hasta and Chitra Nakshatra. Hasta has this sense of awareness and knowledge and depth of mastery. It's kind of a loose connection. Chitra holds truth. Chitra is something that's brilliant, it shines. So it's a pretty solid link, I would say. Hasta is about mastery. You have to have that depth of resource, that depth of skill and knowledge and wisdom to be able to master something. And there's kind of a link between Hasta, which is that healing or dexterous hand that's in the process of crafting and mastering, and then Chitra, which seems to be this resultant, shining, brilliant symbol of the pearl. It's like the result of the mastery, this shining truth. So I think there's a good link between Hasta and Chitra and this sense of the depth of knowledge. Not a direct match, but strong enough. So I've given it an 8 out of 10. Gate 57, intuitive insight, the gate of the gentle, goes from around 15 degrees to 20 degrees of Libra. We're in the Chitra Nakshatra here. Again, Chitra, the brilliance, the pearl, truth, the shining pearl of truth. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Chitra will be skilled in arts, craftsmanship, and architecture. They will build temples, palaces, and cities and excel in creating beauty through precise calculation. So it's like producing things of great beauty for us through intense calculations. Does well both the gate of the gentle and this Chitra Nakshatra being in Libra. Libra being a feminine, socially oriented sign. It's the scales. It's to do with social intelligence as well. And it's called the gate of the gentle. So it makes sense that in a feminine Venus-ruled sign, we have this gentleness, whereas we also have the ability to produce things of beauty, craftsmanship, and architecture. Being skilled in the arts, Libra rules the arts, Venus rules the arts. So for the notes for the gate of the gentle, the extraordinary power of clarity. From the Ravi Ching, it's the penetration of a chill breeze that can touch you to the bone, capacity to penetrate to the core of the now. So what this is getting at is this gate of intuitive insight. It's this archetype of something just hits you. Not logical, shower thought, instant insight, like a breeze. No quality or weight to it. It's like, boom, intuitive insight. In terms of it matching to Chitra Nakshatra, not really so much of a direct archetypal match. But the swift, penetrating, intuitive insight is usually brilliant, shines like a pearl, like Chitra. It is truth. It's about truth too. So Chitra is, that there's the brilliance, this truth, and there is this link to intuitive insight, which must be truthful by nature. Genuine substance for true form, going from Chitra. Intuitive insight is from an authentic source. That's kind of a stretch by me. Gate 57 is more immediate and in the moment versus Chitra's association with physical crafting work to create beautiful things. Whereas intuitive insight is much more an airy, a soft, instant, mental characteristic. Again, does well in Libra, Libra being an air an air sign. But that's about it really for that in terms of the matching archetypes. Gate 32, continuity, the gate of duration. This goes from 20 Libra through around 26 Scorpio. It crosses both Chitra and Swati Nakshatra. So to introduce Swati Nakshatra, it's the maverick. The symbol is coral. Independence, progress. It needs drift to be different. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Swati will be independent, adaptable, and skilled in trade. Like the wind, they navigate change without losing direction. So we have a clear image for this one. And the gate of continuity and duration, the notes I have is the only thing which endures is change. From the Ravi Ching, adapt in the now without losing continuity. Individual survival on the material plane. So I've given this a 7 out of 10. Obviously, it doesn't align with Chitra, but it does, Swati's maverick independence, this characteristic of Swati Nakshatra, the maverick, the independence, they need to be different, they need to drift around. Its drifting directly matches the continuity and duration gate. Navigation without losing direction. So continuing things, the gate of continuance, the gate of duration, continuing on, adapting, being swift and adaptable. Like the wind, they navigate change without losing direction. So it's not like there is a sense of duration here. They can adapt and navigate and endure on this journey. So this is a real solid match, I think, this gate of continuity and duration versus Maverick's swiftness, independence, and being able to navigate change without losing direction. It's that characteristic in human design of being able to navigate intuitively, regardless of the external circumstances. So I think it's a pretty good match. Gate 50, values, the Cauldron. This is in Swati Nakshatra, around 26 of Libra to 2 Scorpio. Swati Nakshatra is the maverick, independence, progress. One born in Swati will be independent, skilled in all actions, engaged in trade or agriculture, may earn a livelihood through weapons or tools. And the deity is Vayu, which literally means wind. So the notes I have for Gate 50, values, the Cauldron, the value of historical continuity whose traditional values serve and enrich the present and the future. From the Ravi Ching, I have tribal law, the fear of responsibility. Personally, I cannot see any match between the conservative notion of tribal nourishment. Personally, I can't see any match between the conservative notion of tribal nourishment and the historical values and the maverick, independent, progressive thing with Swati. There is the link to being engaged in agriculture, earning a living through weapons or tools, very lightly linking that to tribal nourishment, but it's a real stretch. So we have Swati, this maverick, independent, swift nakshatra, with the gate of historical continuity, the traditional values that serve and enrich the present and the future, this tribal law, preserving the tribe. This seems to be a complete conservative versus progressive sort of dichotomy here, so I don't think there's a real archetypal match. Gate 28, the game player, preponderance of the great. This goes from about 2 degrees of Scorpio to 7 degrees of Scorpio. We're still in the Swati Nakshatra. The notes I have for Gate 28, the gate of the game player, the transitoriness of power and influence. From the Rave I Ching, knowing in the now whether it is of value to struggle or not. The fear of death, struggling and delving deep into the meaning of life. Awareness of what is worth taking risks and fighting for. So this game player, does well in Scorpio, being a power sign ruled by Mars, whose Mars can be associated with athletics and battles and games to some extent, war games. Game player. There's a sense of transitory power and influence, knowing in the now whether it is of value to struggle or not. Should I put myself deep into this game or not? There's a sphere of death. There's a real risk to playing the game, struggling and then delving deep into the meaning of life, going into the game. Awareness of what is worth taking risks. So I do think there's a direct match to that sense of transitoriness. Swati is independent and has this drifting characteristic. It needs drift to be different. Naturally, its own power and influence would also be transitory. Swati is also aware of its own risk-taking, though it is independent and drifting. Knowing that power and influence can sway, and the Swati Nakshatra has a sense of swaying with the power. So there's a sense of transitory power, playing the game, with the sense of the maverick who's, skilled, trade, agriculture, livelihood through weapons, going into the game, risking death, and Scorpio being associated with death and being ruled by Mars, this aggressive planet, in the sense of really getting involved in a sort of masculine sense and really risking something. So like a risk taker, that would be the characteristic, or a maverick risk taker, adrenaline junkies, that sort of thing. So I think there's a good match there. Not entirely super aligned, but a strong match. Gate 44, Alertness, coming to meet, goes from 7 degrees to 13 degrees of Scorpio. We're in the Swati Nakshatra. The notes for the Gate of Alertness is that the success of any interaction is based on the absence of any preconditions. From the Revi Ching, I have that it's the part of the channel of entrepreneurial enterprise, a design of a transmitter, this part of the ego circuit, and the splenic center. It's to transmit one's ego to the tribe. So this gate of alertness and coming to meet, individual meeting with tribe, in this nakshatra to do with the maverick, this independence. I've given it a 5 out of 10. Both have a sense of sudden change, requiring adaptability in the now, but Swati's independence avoids entanglement in volatile situations. It's a dance of caution and adaptability. I don't think there's a real strong archetypal link to these ones. Next up is gate number 1, self-expression, the creative. It goes from about 13 to 18 degrees of Scorpio. We're in Swati and Vishakha nakshatras. Vishakha nakshatra is the coupler. The symbol is the archway. It's a goal-oriented nakshatra. Description is it needs fertilized seeds to harvest. So the notes for the gate of self-expression, the gate of the creative, I have creation as a primal force, the energy potential to manifest inspiration without limitation. From the Revi Ching, it's the yangest, the 6 yang lines hexagram. It's the yangest of the hexagrams. Deep need to express oneself, demands attention, doing your own thing. It's the first gate. It's the self-expression. It's number 1. This creative self-expression that just bursts out from the very start. It's not an obvious match with Vishakha, this goal-oriented archway symbolism. Both focus on harnessing this power to create and lead and become goal-oriented. The Vishakha nakshatra has the sense of ambition, determination, and focus. Vishakha is ruled by Jupiter, which is that expansive and creative planet. So it's not a super powerful match. And again, there's a sense of the coupler here versus the independence of self-expression that the human design gate has. It's not a solid match, so we'll move on. Gate 43, Insight, the gate of breakthrough. 18 degrees to 24 degrees of Scorpio within the Vishakha nakshatra. The notes on the gate 43, I have in order for achievement to be maintained, a new order must be fairly established. From the Revi Ching, the harmonic gate is 23. This is about the third eye, the inner ear, individual mental knowing, and it's the Ajna center, that third eye center. So it's a mental gate of insight, mental breakthrough. I don't think it's got a strong link to the Vishakha nakshatra. It's ruled by Jupiter, which does govern wisdom, which is about insights. Vishakha has an unstoppable determination and a profound insight. Both are about finding clarity and breaking through old limitations. We've got breakthrough and this goal orientation in Vishakha. Indra and Agni represent wisdom-driven breakthroughs. So there's a light link here. Sense of mental insight and wisdom and breaking through something. Whereas Vishakha is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of wisdom, and it's goal-oriented. So it's trying to break through. So I think there's a good, strong enough 5 out of 10 link. I won't push it too far. Gate 14, the gate of power skills, possession in great measure, going from 24 degrees of Scorpio to around 7 arc minutes of Sagittarius. This crosses the Vishakha and Anuradha nakshatras. To introduce Anuradha nakshatra, it's the lover. The symbol is the lotus. It's romance, desire, love, sex. It needs arousal for climax. It's the kind of archetypal lover boy nakshatra. The notes I have for gate 14 is the accumulation and retention of power through skilled interaction, coupling grace with control. From the Revi Ching, the fertile power of the sacral center at its most exalted, the fuel that drives the cars. So this sense of power skill, possession in great measure, I give it 6 out of 10. Vishakha is certainly powerful, ruled by Indra and Agni, ruled by Jupiter, governing wealth and expansion. So ambition, victory, and achieving status matches well here, power skills and Vishakha. From the Brihat Samhita, Vishakha born are resolute, unwavering in their pursuits, driven by a fire that does not wane. So that feels like power skills to me. So the characteristic of the human design gate, this possession in great measure, knowing what to do with resources, having powerful skills to manage your resources and to generate resources and to achieve the goals. There's a light archetypal link. I think it does pretty well. And Scorpio is very power seeking as well. That does power skills does well in both Scorpio and Sagittarius. Scorpio is about hidden power. Sagittarius is the wisdom fire sign ruled by Jupiter. It's fiery, goal-oriented, and ultimately ruled by Jupiter, which is wisdom. So power skills does well in Scorpio and Sagittarius archetypally, and does pretty well with the Vishakha nakshatra. So 6 out of 10. Gate 34, power. The power of the great, the gate of power. Running from about the start of Sagittarius to 5 degrees Sagittarius. This is actually in the Anuradha nakshatra. We're still in Anuradha nakshatra here. The lover, obviously Anuradha being the very loving one. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Anuradha will foster alliances, lead communities, and uphold sacred bonds. The strength lies in unity, not solitude. The notes that I have for the gate of power, gate 34, is that power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. From the Revi Ching, pure unconditioned power, power ready for display, available for use. So it's just pure energy, pure power. Just gate of power. I've got a 5 out of 10 match here. Both Anuradha and the gate of power hold a theme of flourishing through adversity, but Anuradha is much more partnership focused. It's love and romance and relationships. It has some association with occult powers, but it's more traditionally associated with love, romance, partnership, and community and interpersonal skills. Maybe power coming from unity. So it's not a direct match with Anuradha with the gate of power. I do think it does well being in Sagittarius, though. Sagittarius being expansive, fire sign, wisdom, ruled by Jupiter. Sagittarius is a powerhouse, so power works well. Gate 9, the gate of focus, or the taming power of the small, running from 5 degrees to 11 degrees of Sagittarius. We are running both the Anuradha and the Jyeshta nakshatras here. So to introduce Jyeshta nakshatra, Jyeshta, the translation is the best Jyeshta. The symbol is the earring. It's ambition and intrigue. One description is it needs attacks for counterattacks. From the Brihat Samhita, one born in Jyeshta will be dominant, ruthless in action, and victorious in battles. So it's very powerhouse, the best. And it works well being in Sagittarius, which is a powerful powerhouse sign. It's not really a match with Anuradha. Jyeshta is ruled by Indra, which represents strategic control rather than brute aggression. And it's about being victorious in battles. There's a concentrated force. It's focus. Now, this is more characteristic of being able to concentrate and focus on those small tasks, but there is a sense of concentration of power here. The gate of focus, the taming power of the small, to really focus in on the details. That concentration of energy and power can sort of be associated with Jyeshta nakshatra. But Jyeshta is much more victorious and glorious than the delicate, small focusing archetype of this 9th gate. So I'd give it a 5 out of 10. I do think it does well being in the Sagittarius sign in the tropical zodiac. I wouldn't exactly link it to Jyeshta Nakshatra though. Gate 5, fixed rhythms, waiting from 11 degrees of Sagittarius to 17 degrees of Sagittarius. We're in the Jyeshta Nakshatra here. The notes that I have for gate 5 on the gate of waiting is the fundamental attunement to natural rhythms. Waiting as an active state of awareness. From the Revati Ching, empowerment of the self, power to fix the pattern, habits, daily rhythms, daily tempos. So this is a gate about fixed rhythms, being able to wait, being able to get a sense of patterns, daily habits, daily rhythms, setting yourself up for those daily cycles. There's no, to be honest, there's no real link to the idea of daily habits and rhythms versus the victorious nature of the Jyeshta Nakshatra. It doesn't really speak to the expansive archetype of Sagittarius either, so this is like a 0 out of 10 for me. Gate 26, the egoist, the taming power of the great, running from 17 Sagittarius to 22 Sagittarius. We are in Jyeshta Nakshatra and Mula Nakshatra. To introduce Mula Nakshatra, it's the uprooter. The symbol is the root, the Mula, like the Mula chakra. So lie detecting. It needs lies to clash. That's a description. So this real sense of the root. The description for gate 26, the egoist, the taming power of the great, the maximization of the power of memory applied to the nurturing of continuity. A little bit archaic description. Revati Ching says it's the gate of the egoist, the trickster. Gate of the egoist. So it's kind of matched with Jyeshta's proud power to nurture continuity. Doesn't really match the egoist or trickster archetypes. Mula is it's like the root of a tree, the root of things being on the ground and uprooting things. I don't really see how it's matched with this gate of the egoist or the trickster. I don't really see how it's matched to the Sagittarius archetypes either, so it doesn't really get a score for me. Gate 11, the gate of ideas or the gate of peace. Running from 22 Sagittarius to 28 Sagittarius. We're in the Mula Nakshatra, Mula being the uprooter. The notes for gate 11, the gate of peace, is a harmonic condition in the individual or society that permits assessment before renewed action. In the Revati Ching, it says the conceptual possibility which emerges from the task of realizing. The fulfillment of an idea is its verbal expression, not action. Ideas are not prescription for action. They are stimulation for reflection. So it's just a gate of pure ideas, ideas, cool ideas, talking about cool ideas, distinct from actually implementing anything. It's just the gate of ideas. Kind of works well with being in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, is more expansive and positive, ruled by Jupiter, this planet of wisdom. But I don't really see the alignment to the Mula Nakshatra. One is solely about ideas, the other is about uprooting things and detecting lies. So not really a clear match on that one. Gate 10, the behavior of the self, the gate of treading. 28 degrees of Capricorn to 28 degrees of Sagittarius to 3 degrees of Capricorn. We're in the Mula and crossing over to the Prava Ashada Nakshatra. To introduce Prava Ashada Nakshatra, Prava Ashada can be translated to the alliance. The symbol is the elephant tusk. It's about power and allies. It needs the powerful for alliance. From the Tatricha Brahmana, the invincible early victory is the nakshatra of penetrating obstacles through adaptable persistence. So it's a very powerful nakshatra, that this power of the elephant, people riding on an elephant in an army, powerful alliances, invincible early victory, penetrating obstacles, adaptable persistence. It's a kind of powerhouse nakshatra. The notes for the human design gate 10, the behavior of the self, or treading, the underlying code of behavior which ensures successful interaction despite circumstances. In the Revati Ching, it says part of the channel of following one's convictions. It's a G-center gate. I give this a 5 out of 10. There's a sense of adaptable persistence, victory through unbroken continuity of effort, but there's a contrast between the behavior of the self and the alliance of Purva Ashada. Both overcome adversity through non-aggressive strategic methods. It's kind of this personal humility versus a cosmic flow. So this behavior of the self, part of the channel of following your own convictions, it's still a powerful characteristic to follow your own convictions. Works well being in late Sagittarius. Not quite sure how it matches to this very powerful alliance-oriented nakshatra of Purva Ashada. So I give it a 5 out of 10. Gate 58, aliveness, the gate of the joyous, running from 3 degrees Capricorn to 9 degrees of Capricorn in the Purva Ashada nakshatra. Purva Ashada is the alliance again. So gate 58, the notes that I have for aliveness is stimulation is the key to joy. From the Revi Ching, I have, this is a root center gate, part of a design of insatiability, a gate of vitality, zest for life, and the energy for a better life. So I've given this a solid 8 out of 10 because this is a gate of aliveness, the joyous. And there's a sense of power and vitality and persistence for better circumstance between this gate of aliveness and the joyous and the Purva Ashada, powerful, early victory, penetrating obstacles through adaptable persistence. It's not an exact match, but it's still a powerful obstacle-beating archetype. The energy and zest for life, causing the victory and improvement of circumstances. And Purva Ashada is ruled by Venus, which is also associated with enjoyment, luxuries. There's a sense of invincibility, charisma, and optimism, which matches well with this sense of the gate of aliveness, the joyous, and this Purva Ashada powerhouse victory nakshatra. So given it an 8 out of 10, I think it's a pretty good match. Gate 38, the fighter, opposition. This is in 9 degrees to 15 degrees of Capricorn in Purva Ashada nakshatra. So the notes I have for gate 38, the gate of the fighter, is the ability to preserve individual integrity through opposition to detrimental forces. In the Revi Ching, it's part of the channel of struggle, a design of stubbornness, the fuel to fight, the struggle to fight for what has value. So clear archetype, fighting for what has value. I think there's a pretty good 6 out of 10 alignment here. Overcoming obstacles in the heat of struggle versus the patience of universal flow. Both have fighting imagery. Purva Ashada being the powerful, victorious alliance. Gate 38 being the gate of the individual fighter. One's an individual fighter, one is this powerful allies and assured victory. So both have this fighting dynamic. I think that's a very, very clear match. The gate of the fighter in a nakshatra associated with victory and powerful alliances. Very good. I mean, and in Capricorn as well, this solid earth sign ruled by Saturn, which is certainly gritty and ready to fight. So a very good archetypal match on this one. I will give it a 6 out of 10. Gate 54, the gate of ambition, also known as the marrying maiden in the I Ching, running 15 degrees to 20 degrees of Capricorn in the Purva Ashada nakshatra. The notes I have for gate 54, the gate of ambition, interaction in its mundane social context, but also one's mystical and cosmic relationships. And in the Revi Ching, rising up, moving up the ladder, the gate of drive, ambition, fuels the drive to transform. So it's much more easy to understand from the human design perspective. It's an ambitious gate. It's a characteristic of ambition. And we have this Purva Ashada nakshatra, which is a powerful alliance that goes to victory. So I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Both have this energy of rising up, either aiming to be victorious or actually just being victorious. There is a bit of a discrepancy between the individual ambition and the rising up versus the joining the powerful alliance, but both are quite ambitious, have fighting energy, and gain victory. Purva Ashada is strength and invincibility. It's about that elephant tusk, the strength and the durability, the ambition to win your fights, to join powerful alliances, to make your way up the ladder. So I think this is a really strong archetypal match between the I Ching, the human design gate of ambition, landing in Purva Ashada. Now, Capricorn, it's solid, it's Saturn ruled, it's an earth sign. We're associated with ambition. I think so. Capricorn is often associated with government and corporate and the corporate ladder, ruled by Saturn, that very hardworking, slightly less aggressive, but still very gritty and hardworking planet of Saturn. So all three kind of line up here. So I'm giving that a 6 out of 10. Gate 61, the gate of mystery, or the gate of inner truth, running from 20 to 26 degrees Capricorn. We are in Uttara Ashada Nakshatra. To introduce Uttara Ashada Nakshatra, translation is the victor. The symbol is the elephant's tusk. Again, it's about mastery, commanding, and it needs to command, to conquer. Mastery, commanding, this sense of being the warrior riding the elephant. So the notes that I have for gate 61, the gate of mystery, is the awareness of universal underlying principles. From the Revi Ching, I get it's a head center gate. It's part of the knowing circuit, and it's part of the design of a thinker, the pressure to resolve the individual mystery. I'm giving this a 4 out of 10 because we have a break in alignment here with the Uttara Ashada being the victory, commanding, conquering. It worked pretty well for the previous gate versus this introverted pressure to resolve and do mental activity, design of a thinker. It doesn't really align. This is a introverted mental activity, analytical activity archetype versus this powerful victory, commanding, masterous, powerful nakshatra. Doesn't quite add up. So I give it a 4 out of 10. Gate 60, the gate of acceptance or the gate of limitation, running from 26 Capricorn to 2 degrees Aquarius in the Uttara Ashada Nakshatra. Uttara Ashada is the victor. The symbol is the elephant's tusk. Mastery, commanding. It needs to command, to conquer. The notes that I have from gate 60 for the gate of acceptance, the acceptance of limitation is the first step in transcendence. From the Revi Ching, pulsing pressure to mutate, limited. Otherwise, this energy can manifest as chronic depression. So I don't really see much of an alignment between the idea of limitations and accepting limitations versus Uttara's highly extroverted, commanding, conquering, victory-oriented energy. The human design gate is about accepting limitations as a way to move forward, whereas Uttara Ashada would not have any acceptance of limitations. It would just smash through it because it has this victorious glory kind of ridden energy to it. So I've given that a 4 out of 10, not a direct archetypal alignment. Gate 41, contraction, or the gate of decrease. It runs from 2 degrees to 7 degrees Aquarius. It crosses Uttara Ashada and the Shravana Nakshatra. To introduce Shravana Nakshatra, this is the listener. The symbol is the ear. It's about learning, progressing, sound, music, listening to spiritual teachers. It needs questions to find the path. The notes that I have for gate 41, the gate of contraction or the gate of decrease, is the limitation of resources which maximizes the development of potential. From the Revi Ching, contraction, cutting back the plants in autumn, part of the channel of recognition, a design of focused energy. So cutting back the plants in autumn, decreasing things, contracting things so that, getting rid of things so that things can move on. This sense of in contraction and in decrease, there's a certain strength. Unfortunately, this doesn't really match with Uttara Ashada's victorious imagery. There isn't any really decrease or contraction of resources there. Neither does it match the Shravana Nakshatra's symbol of the ear, the listening for wisdom. There is a sense of patience and delayed gratification, but that is a real stretch from me. So Uttara Ashada, this powerhouse, and Shravana, the listener to spiritual wisdom, does not really associate well with the gate of contraction and decrease. So that's a 0 out of 10. Gate 19, wanting, the gate of approach. This goes from 7 degrees to 13 degrees Aquarius. We are in the Shravana Nakshatra. Again, Shravana, the listener, ear, listening to spiritual teachings, wisdom, sound. The notes that I have for gate 19, the gate of wanting, the gate of approach, that all things are interrelated is apparent and manifested through the action of approach. From the Revati Ching, this is a root center gate. The ego circuit is part of the channel of synthesis, a design of being sensitive. It's about supporting the tribe, and survival. It's making sure the tribe survives with the resources such as food. This sense of the gate being approach, getting what you want, being part of a tribal channel to give goods and resources to the tribe, also being highly sensitive to emotional needs. So the channel that this makes up is the channel of synthesis, which is called a design of being sensitive. So there's a sense of emotional sensitivity here. I've given this a 0 out of 10. There doesn't seem to be an obvious connection to the gate of wanting, this tribal providing energy of food and resources. This is an emotional thing. With the nakshatra of listening to spiritual wisdom, the ear, listening and learning, there's a brief link to preserving what is valuable for the collective, but that's a super stretch from me. So the human design gate, the wanting, doesn't, for me, match up with the nakshatra of Shravana. Gate 13, the listener, the fellowship of man. This runs from 13 to 18 Aquarius. We are in Shravana, and it crosses over to Dhanishta Nakshatra. Now, get a load of this one, because Shravana is the listener. The symbol is the ear. It's about learning, progressing, music, sound, listening to spiritual wisdom. It needs questions to find the path. And this gate is literally called the listener. This is the gate of the listener in the nakshatra, Vedic nakshatra, called the listener, with the symbol of the ear. This is one of the strongest alignments in the entire thing, considering, once again, that the order of these I Ching hexagrams are essentially completely arbitrary, that the founder of human design specifically placed the separate I Chings in these specific areas of the tropical zodiac, and we look at a system which is thousands of years older, and we have a division in their astrological system, which also contains the symbol of listening. So this is a very strong link for me, and kind of crazy that this gate links up so well. So universal ideas and values in an ordered framework which inspires humanistic cooperation. From the Revati Ching, for the gate of the listener, this gate will always attract others who will come and share their experiences. The knowledge of the cycle is accumulated as memory. The gate of the hearer of secrets, the listening to spiritual wisdom, the gate of the listener in the nakshatra of the listener. So this is a 10 out of 10, direct match, direct hit. The listener and Shravana, both about listening and learning. The hearer of secrets in the Revati Ching is like hearing Vedic knowledge or spiritual knowledge from the Vedic standpoint. The fact that both are in Aquarius, an air sign associated with innovation, spiritual wisdom to some extent, ruled by Saturn, which also governs wisdom, or classic wisdom. Both are in Aquarius, an air sign. Shravana Nakshatra inherently works well with being in Aquarius, an air sign where we transmute and get information from A to B. We literally hear the information through the airwaves, and it's associated with the gate of the listener. So this is a 10 out of 10, really good alignment. And it probably wouldn't work if we didn't use a tropical Vedic system, which is really interesting because the human design I Ching is inherently a tropical zodiac. And there's arguments on the Vedic astrology side as to whether to use the tropical zodiac or a sidereal zodiac. I'm using a tropical zodiac with the sidereal nakshatras. And if it weren't for this, then the nakshatra of Shravana, which is information, listening to wisdom, an airy quality, and the gate of the listener would actually not be in Aquarius, an air sign associated with wisdom and eccentric knowledge. It would be in Capricorn, an earth sign ruled with material resources and hard work. And it just doesn't make sense that the airy nature of spiritual wisdom would go in Capricorn, this very hardworking sign. It works better being in Aquarius, this air sign of wisdom. So that's a 10 out of 10 match. I give it a chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. Gate 49, principles, the gate of revolution. from 18 to 24 Aquarius, we are in the Dhanishta Nakshatra. To introduce Dhanishta Nakshatra, it's translated as the wealth. The symbol is a drum, treasures, beauty. It needs materials to produce wealth. From the Taittiya Brahmana. So introduce Dhanishta Nakshatra, the wealth. The symbol is a drum, treasures, beauty. It needs materials to produce wealth. From the Taittiriya Brahmana, it's the star of symphony, which achieves success through collective alignment and adherence to cosmic rhythms. So the notes that I have for gate 49, the gate of principles or the gate of revolution, is ideally the transformation of forms based on the highest principles and not simply for power. From the Revi Ching, I have exaltation of animals as gods, part of the channel of synthesis, a design of being sensitive. So I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. There's a brief link between wealth and the resources, and which is needed in the channel of synthesis. Remember, this channel of synthesis is a tribal channel to do with being sensitive to the needs of the tribe. It's about producing food, providing food. There's very much an association with resources here, and Dhanishta is a wealth, wealthy materials, inherently has a lot of resources, but it's much more about success and wealth and adherence to cosmic rhythms. So there is that strong link to wealth and resources needed for the tribe. But there's not so much of a strong link. I give it a 5 out of 10. Maybe I should turn it to 6 out of 10. Serving the collective links to the whole resources of the tribe theme in this channel of synthesis, such as communal festivities. So that's the main link, this nakshatra to be associated with wealth and material resources. This gate of principles, which is part of a channel that is about providing the tribe, being sensitive to the needs of the tribe to provide resources such as food and shelter. It's a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Gate 30, the gate of the recognition of feelings, or the gate of clinging fire. It goes from 24 degrees Aquarius to just at the start of Pisces. We're in the Dhanishta Nakshatra. Dhanishta again being the wealth, treasures, beauty, materials. The notes that I have for gate 30, the recognition of feelings, the clinging fire, is freedom recognized as an illusion and limitation accepted as fate. From the Revi Ching, I have that it's a part of the channel of recognition, a design of focused energy, the emotional equivalent of mental realization. So it's a gate of recognition of feelings, high emotional awareness. Personally, I don't see much link here. Dhanishta being a very materially wealthy nakshatra. The drum, the treasures, the beauty associated with a human design gate to do with emotional recognition, emotional feelings. It does well transitioning into Pisces here. It's feelings and emotions aren't really the area of Aquarius, but it's more the area of Pisces. So at least it's just about hitting into Pisces here. But I don't think there's much of a direct link. Gate 55, the gate of spirit, or the gate of abundance, running from just the start of Pisces through to 5 degrees Pisces. The Shatabhishak Nakshatra is the joiner. The symbol is the empty circle. It's quite an abstract connection. It needs space to produce earth. It's associated with the circle of 100 healers, Shatabhishak. So the notes I have for gate 55, the gate of spirit, is abundance is strictly a question of spirit. From the Revi Ching, I have part of the channel of emoting. It's a design of moodiness, the power of emotional awareness, and its potential to destabilize. Abundance is a gate of a potential awareness. Moods are the manifestation of this frequency. So this gate of spirit seems to be more associated with that emotional spirit, a power of emotional awareness and its potential to destabilize. It's part of the design of moodiness. So the unstable moodiness, the spirit of emotions. So there's a nice link here between the gate of spirit to the abstract connection to space that Shatapishak has. Shatapishak doesn't really link to the emotional moodiness of this gate, though. There's a sort of tribal emotional link that Shatapishak can also translate to 100 lovers or 100 healers. This pattern of frequent and significant change, just like the emotional wave of human design. I don't really think there's a link between the 100 physicians, the 100 healers, and this gate of spirit and abundance. There is a loose emotional link, and I think this being an emotional human design gate, a emotional I Ching hexagram, does well being sitting in Pisces, an emotional water sign. But does it connect to this more surgical 100 healers nakshatra? I don't really think so. Gate 37, friendship or the family, goes from 5 degrees to 11 degrees of Pisces in the Shatapishak nakshatra. We're still in Shatapishak nakshatra here. So gate 37, the gate of friendship or the family, the notes that I have here are the manifestation macro and microcosmically of the organic nature of communities. From the Revi Ching, I have the solar plexus center, part of the channel of community, a design of being part of a greater whole, or a part seeking a whole, the most communal of all gates. So the gate of friendship, it's clearly friends, family, tribe, being friendly. This gate is a part of design of being a part seeking a whole. So finding wholeness through connections and relationships to your larger tribe, your larger friends and family. As well being in Pisces, very emotional, relational, and emotive tropical zodiac sign. But does it really link with Shatapishak, this 100 physicians, 100 healers kind of mythology? I mean, friendship and family and 100 healers, physical and emotional healing, the benefactors that bring resources, whether food and shelter or emotional support. There's a kind of a sense of 100 healers being the sense of support, which is what you seek from friends and family, and the tribe at large. You could make the argument that this 100 healers is your network, your tribe that could provide resources such as healing. But for me, I feel like Shatapishak is more surgical healing associated. But I could be wrong. But I think it's a loose connection. I'll give it like a 4 out of 10. Gate 63, doubt, or after completion. 11 degrees to 17 degrees of Pisces in the Purva Bhadrapada nakshatra. To introduce Purva Bhadrapada nakshatra, one translation is approaching the altar. The symbol is swords. It's destruction, dissatisfaction. It needs universal fire to reduce the world. And the hexagram I Ching note that I have for gate 63, the gate of doubt, in the spiral of life, all ends are beginnings. And from the Revi Ching, the fuel of doubt, of suspicion, of distrust, the pressure of doubt fuels anxiety and the fear for the collective future. And it's part of the channel of logic. So there's this, the 63rd gate being the second to last gate in the human design mandala means there's this dusk coming, this doubt. We've done something, and now there's a shadow being cast, and there's a sense of ending. There's a sense of contraction here. That's all ends are beginnings, but things all have endings. So the sense of doubt that creeps at the end of a completion, end of a cycle, or the start of the end of a cycle. And Purva Bhadrapada is pretty well matched up, I think, here. I give it a 6 out of 10. There's a good link to the sense of a cycle coming to an end, the doubt after completion, and the Purva Bhadrapada's destruction and fire to reduce the world back to basic things. Purva Bhadrapada being in Pisces, the traditional last sign of the zodiac, is associated with spiritual enlightenment, moksha, but death. It's the end of the cycle. It's end of the tropical zodiac wheel. It's very spiritual. It's about death and passing into the afterlife, and that cycle of life coming to completion, the spiritual implications of the last part of the cycle. So it does really well being the 63rd gate, which is the second to last gate in the human design system, which is this sense of creeping doubt and creeping destruction. So things appear finished, but doubt remains, and the beginning of the end starts. Purva Bhadrapada is about moving between destruction and creation, the uncertainty after achieving something, and standing between one reality and the next. It's kind of like standing after the completion of something. You look to the left, you've completed, you've got to the end of that progression, you've achieved the goals, you've got the end of the developmental sequence, and you look to the right and you see the slow destruction and death and doubt, which is a crucial part of the resetting of any cycle. So there's this kind of dark undertone to the Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, which really complements the gate of doubt, especially considering it's the second to last gate in the human design system. So I've given that a good 6 out of 10. I should probably give it a 7 out of 10. This sense of the creeping end at the end of the cycle. Gate 22, openness, the gate of grace, from 17 degrees to 22 degrees of Pisces. So we're in the Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. Purva Bhadrapada, again, this very end of a cycle, end of the world, spiritual death, spiritual liberation, burning down the swords, approaching the altar. I mean, that's a powerful symbol. Approaching the altar, accepting that you're going to die, accepting that the inevitable spiritual reality of dissolution is about to be upon you. Purva Bhadrapada. It's really good imagery. It needs universal fire to reduce the world. Ending, again, Pisces, last sign, spiritual liberation, moksha, the soul escaping the body, the end of all cycles, the doomsday which brings a new cycle. But this is a gate of openness and a gate of grace. And the note that I have for gate 22 is a quality of behavior best suited in handling mundane and trivial situations. From the Revati Ching, it says it's a part of the emotional center, and it's part of the design of being a social being. Spirit becomes the possibility to share that spirit with others. The role of the individual is incomplete without social skills. So it seems like a kind of mundane gate. This is a gate to do with just general social skills, being an open person, having some grace in your social interactions. And some people have more openness and grace in their social interactions than other people. Some people are inherently more social than other people. And whilst Pisces is an emotive, empathetic sign, it doesn't quite match with this apocalyptic ending of the cycle imagery that Purva Bhadrapada has. You know, there's not real space for being a light-hearted social being whilst you're approaching the altar and approaching the end of the world. It doesn't quite make sense. But it does work well in Pisces, being an empathetic, emotional, watery sign. But this gate is for trivial, mundane social interactions, which doesn't quite fit into, I don't know, the end of the world. Maybe it does, but I give it a 4 out of 10. Doesn't quite add up, but it does do well being in Pisces. And finally, gate 36, the gate of crisis or darkening of the light. This is at the very end of Pisces, 22 degrees through to 28 degrees of Pisces in Uttara Bhadrapada. So now previously we had Purva Bhadrapada approaching the altar. Now we have Uttara Bhadrapada above the altar. So this is a detachment, dissociation. It needs to sanctify to extract essence. Purva Bhadrapada was approaching the end of the cycle, the kind of end of the world, destruction and dissatisfaction. The symbol is the sword. And Uttara Bhadrapada, the second half of this kind of joined nakshatra, we are now above the altar. What a powerful symbol. It's like transcendence from the material world, either through a conscious liberation or through the natural destruction that comes with the end of any cycle. Rise and fall, like the sine waves in the universe. It's the gate of crisis, the darkening of the light. The night is coming down. The show is coming to an end. The curtains are about to close. The note that I have for gate 36, the gate of crisis, is that the rule of cycles in which decline is a natural but not enduring stage. From the Revati Ching, I have it's a part of the channel of transitoriness. Change becomes either something that is dreaded or embraced and fuels a life of expectations and inevitable crises. And there's a sense of the ending of cycles and the decline and the decay obviously being a natural part of life, the transitory nature of life. All things have beginnings, all ends have beginnings, all beginnings have ends. This is the end of the cycle. It's beautifully laid out because it's the end of the mandala, right at the end of Pisces, the traditional astrological ending sign. It's right basically at the end / start of the human design mandala. So it really works well with the imagery of the chart. So I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. There's a fundamental 10 out of 10 match with the final human design gate, this darkening of the light, and the final nakshatra, this sort of the end of the cycle of doom. Uttara Bhadrapada is reducing the world to ashes to start it again, transcending material reality into the spiritual realm. It's detached, dissociated, destroys everything as a way of sanctifying and starting a fresh cycle. So it is with the gate of crisis, the darkening of the light, the end of the cycle. Both have cycle-ending energies. Uttara Bhadrapada is ruled by the serpent of the depths, very kind of the evil and demonic ending, and by Saturn, the classic planet of age, decay, and death. It's a 10 out of 10 match for me because it's so fascinating that you could have this I Ching hexagram developed around 1000 BC in ancient China, and meanwhile in the Vedic India, ancient India, 1000 BC to 500 AD, you have the knowledge of astrology, and they have the particular subdivisions of the sky, this particular nakshatra. And then comes along a guy in the late 80s and kind of arbitrarily positions this particular hexagram at this particular 22 degrees to 28 degrees of Pisces. And when we map it to the nakshatras, both have the archetypal ending of the end, the end of the cycle. Now, note, we're not doing gate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The gates in the human design wheel seem at first random, but the archetypes of the energies matching up with not only the tropical zodiac signs, but now, as we've seen, the nakshatras of Vedic astrology. There shouldn't be any matches, because these interpretations are from different cultures at different times, and yet the same essentially human symbols come out from time to time in both systems. So this really shouldn't exist, and yet somehow it does.